review stuff. Alex and Ted review stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
Or review books and films and other things. Books, films, TV shows. Alex
Stuff.
and Ted review.
I think stuff is good because it leaves us with whatever we want.
Alexa, stop. She heard me say Alex, and obviously that's the same thing as Alexa.
Why did she start playing music?
I don't know. She must have heard me say, like, play. Or some crap. Oh, dear. Okay. Alex and Ted review stuff. This is a podcast dedicated to reviewing things. My name is Ted. This is
Alex.
Basically, we've been friends for a long time. We enjoy all forms of media, from books to films to TV shows, although sometimes our interests don't align. But nonetheless, we are both budding creatives, and it's important to have an understanding of what is popular. And hence, we thought we'd take to the audio waves and give our own personal critiques and thoughts and feelings of today's current and popular media. I feel like I repeated myself somewhere in there, but I can't determine where.
No, you didn't.
Oh,
because you said media, but it was needed every time you said it.
Oh, okay, cool. Starting off this brand new podcast, we are going to give our thoughts on the Netflix TV series that is Shadow and Bone, which was released in April this year, and that we both have watched and that we both enjoyed.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. So there we go. So we're already. What was that?
I said I loved it.
I fairly enjoyed it as well. I fairly enjoyed it all the way up to the end, but we'll come to that.
You didn't like it? Oh, okay. All right.
Well, we'll get to that. Okay. Those who don't know what Shadow and Bone those who don't know what Shadow and Bone are. Shadow and Bone is a fantasy TV series based on a book of the same name, or in fact, actually based on a series of books, which is quite obvious if you have read Shadow and Bone, because one of the plot threads that runs through the entire series is not in the novel Shadow and Bone, is instead in Six of Crows, which is another book that's in the same universe. It's a fantasy novel. It's set in a fictional realm, of which there are fictional countries.
Basically Russia, though.
Okay, yeah. You're
Russia.
Miss Bardugo. I'm going to call her Miss Bardugo. Miss Bardugo, in fact, uses Russia as an influence for the country of Ravka, of which the Shadow and Bone is set. There are a number of other countries mentioned, such as Shuhan and Fjorda. Fjorda, which seems to share like some Scandinavian essence, or maybe other Eastern European, and Shuhan, which seems to be more Asian, I suppose.
Yeah.
But that's more because the actress who plays Alina is portrayed as having Asian influence.
Yeah.
Which is actually a major thing. So Alina, the character, is part Shu from Shuhan, of which so she's already subjugated to discrimination on that basis.
Took me a while to understand that, you know.
What, that people are being racist?
Twice. Yeah, I watched it twice, and I got that they were saying that she doesn't look the same as other people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it legitimately took me a while to be like,
oh, they don't like her because of that.
Yeah, I didn't get it. I really didn't. I was like, what do you mean she looks different?
That's very good of you. You are obviously, a child of the progressive era. You don't see race. Yeah. Also, a major part of this fictional world is that magic exists. There are people who practice the art of magic. These people are called Grisha.
Also known as the small science.
Yes.
Based on science. It's not just like wishy-washy magic. It's like it's based on the elements and like molecules and stuff.
With that in mind, the fact that Alina turns out to be a sun summoner implies that she's a Grisha, and hence we follow her story becoming the sun summoner, who is rumored to be able to take down the Fold, big old wall of shadow and, well, not really bone, and full of monsters. That's half of the story, because the other half is across the Fold, because I find it a very interesting concept. The fold cuts the country of Ravkar. I can't say it without seeming like I'm going
You're never going to be able to unsee it though. Thanks. I really appreciate that because now I'm not going to say either.
Ravkar. You've got East Ravkar, you've got West Ravkar. The west part of Ravkar is next to the sea, and East Ravkar is landlocked but holds like the government. This whole plot, the fact that the fold like divides it in half, causes a little bit of political tension because it's very difficult for people to cross this fold because they might get eaten by monsters.
Yeah.
But also moving supplies that would be obtained through like sea trading and such, it's very difficult for them to enter into East Ravka. Yeah, so there's a bit of a political divide, and because of this, we follow like a second storyline which takes place in the western part of Ravka, of which there are a couple of characters looking to obtain the Sun Summoner, kidnap her,
basically
use her for nefarious schemes. Yes. Which I find is the more interesting plot. To get into like proper critique here, I found it was the more interesting part of it. What would you have?
I don't know.
Agree?
See, I found that bit kind of boring.
What?
Yeah, I actually found it kind of predictable. Because, of course, there's political divide. And, of course, everybody wants to use the new thing. And that's the whole point in, like, let's say most media. Anybody special is to be used and manipulated to their personal gain.
Okay.
So I just didn't find it, to me, it didn't add a lot.
But
I like the three friends.
Yeah.
That's what I would say would be like more interesting.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. Like their storyline and those characters were the more interesting part.
I totally forgot they were trying to kidnap Alina.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the whole idea.
Whole purpose. Yeah.
It does take a few episodes for them to actually reach the point where they reach Alina. So
yeah,
it's reasonable. During that time, they're looking to cross the fold and dealing with gang warfare and mafia style bosses. These three characters, of which there is, if I can remember their names,
Kaz.
Yes, Kaz, Inej, and Jasper.
That's it.
Of which my guff got annoyed because I kept calling him Jasper. He is my favorite character, actually. I found him. Yeah, he's my favorite out of everyone. I mean, he is the what do you call it? The comic relief in a sense. He is, the fun-loving one. He's the one who's just kind of enjoying himself and he's trying to trying to quack rise all the time. But he's also quite a very dynamic character. Like, you see all sorts of sides of him. Like, he's a brilliant gunslinger, which is cool, right? And then he gets really scared at one point, and you're like, that's endearing. And he's also non-binary, which makes him interesting, progressive. So
he's the most human. I would really say, like, the one that you could really say, like, you could identify with, I suppose, because everybody else has to either be unbelievably brave or unbelievably manipulative.
Mm-hmm.
And then even like Inej, she's quite human.
Yes.
But she's also, again, they're all in abnormal situations. It's a fantasy, right?
Mm.
So it's kind of hard to identify with people. But I suppose, Jesper, he shows that vulnerability. Like the moment when he has to watch somebody sew themselves because he's squeamish, even though he's a gunslinger.
Yeah. I think what a very good quality that Shadow and Bone has is that the characters have their own specific kind of like qualities and flaws that they're dealing with throughout the entirety that build upon the actual plot, because there is an actual like plot. Usually with stories you have two kinds of plots, where it's an environmental plot or a character plot, where the environment, something is happening and it's people interacting with that thing, and then you have character plots, which is them dealing with their own inner demons. That's a very like basic understanding of it. But Shadow and Bone does a very good job of having this environmental plot, but not focusing too much on the environmental plot, because the main they really want to focus on the character thing, so the character plotline. So Alina's is the prominent one. She is the protagonist. Kaz is like a secondary protagonist in a way,
Yeah.
with Nedge and Jesper being like tertiary. Mal is also kind of a secondary protagonist,
Yeah.
but more like supporting, I'd say. I like Mal has his own kind of like story that he's following.
Yeah.
But it basically ties into Alina's. So
I think they could have delved into his character a little bit more.
yeah.
I was a little bit disappointed with when it started. It felt like they were kind of going to go off with Alina for a little bit and then go back to Mal for a bit longer, but it wasn't. Mal's kind of bit, like his episode, was really just him focusing on doing something to get close to Alina. Not really his background or even the realization of feelings, whatever that may be, whether that's, why is he doing this? It was never clear, like, why he feels so strongly. Is it because they've grown up together? Is it because he has feelings? It just kind of glossed over it, I felt like.
Would you say that Mal is a fully fledged character on his own?
No.
No, I was just thinking that.
Yeah,
He's
I
not
think
really. His whole personality is just he loves Alina and won't admit it.
Yeah.
That's
and that's really disappointing because he clearly has, based on his actions throughout the series, he clearly has a lot of strength. He has his inner demons. Like the whole thing that he is afraid of Grisha women. And then Alina is in like, well, are you afraid of me because I'm now Grisha?
Okay. Yeah, he might be right. He might be right.
But that's what I'm saying, right? It was never addressed as to, is he afraid? Why is he afraid? But if his best friend is saying that, then there must have been something to make him afraid. Now, is that because of the fold? Well, maybe, but still it's glossed over because Alina isn't afraid of Grisha's.
And it seems like he joined the because they are in the army. So they start off as the part of the first army, and it seems like Mal was the one who joined, and he's a soldier, and Alina, meanwhile, is a cartographer.
Yeah.
So they're both two distinct parts. Now, it doesn't really mention who joined what first, but it feels like because Mal is like a soldier, that he joined for a specific reason. Is it from, a need to survive? It's like one of the best occupations you can have if you're an orphan. Or is it because he feels a need to help people?
Yeah.
And then Alina is a cartographer because
she wanted to be close to Mal. That was my understanding.
Yeah.
That was the way for her to join so they could stay together, because that's the only thing they touched on briefly, that they always planned to stay together.
Yeah, there was a nice few moments where they actually showed like the different sacrifices they made to do that.
Yeah.
Like her like faking the fact that she wasn't a Grisha in her first test, and Mel beating on that one guy who sent Alina down to the brig, I suppose you could call it. And so then he could also be tossed in the brig with her, which is very cute. And yet, even at the end, they don't end up together, do they? I mean, they end up like together, like, oh, we're gonna go on an adventure together, but they never kiss. So many moments where it's so close.
Speaking of kissing, I do think we need to deal, or at least talk about, the Darkling and Alina.
Oh yes, the Darkling is a very interesting character. In a general sense, I love not being able to work out where something is going, because I'm usually very good with it.
Yeah.
I think I annoy my guff a lot. I keep annoying her because I think I do anyway, because I have this thing where I try to predict what someone's going to say, and a lot of the time I am right, because I don't know, I just have like an idea. Yeah, I guess so. I have a bit of a writer's touch, and I can see how I would do it, and then usually other people do it the same way. So I'm like, yes. But the Darkling was interesting to me because I could not tell which way it was going to go, because I really liked the idea that he was a good guy and he was making up for the sins of his ancestors, which was a nice kind of twist, because he's the Shadow Mancer, a Shadow Warlock. There's a name for it. So like, obviously that he would be evil if you were to go by cliches, but I thought it was interesting if he wasn't. But then I also was
Yeah.
interested in the fact that he was like, because he was very good at it.
I see what you mean. I think your own personal preference there would have been the thing that clouded your judgment. Because for me, it was predictable for the moment he appeared on screen. I think if he was good, they would have played out him being a bit bad for longer. But they kind of introduced him as this powerful character, and then suddenly he's all sweet and romantic to somebody that he's really just met, right? Nobody
She's a
does
sun
that.
summoner. She's
Yeah,
a
I
sun
know.
summoner.
Yeah, I get that, but I'm like, isn't that a bit sus, right?
Well, I thought it was like he'd found someone who's kind of like him, you know,
But it was
the
obvious it was a
only one.
power trip. Come on.
I mean, a little bit. I could tell that he was obviously like, yeah, a bit abusive of his powers, but nonetheless, I thought it would be kind of, especially when he, if I was Alina, I would have totally, been fucked over because when he told the whole story of him being a boy and being lonely, I would believed him right off the bat.
Yeah, I think I did too. But I still thought he was bad. Something was off. Something was off the moment that he was on screen, right?
Okay.
And I've seen so many things online that people love, like the idea of the Darkling and Alina together. It
Dark and
never
light.
appealed. I know, right? But that's just okay. That's just cliche, right? But it's just so weird. And then you got Mal, right? You got good old Mal.
Yeah. But he can't admit his own feelings. Very
Because he's a
frustrating.
kid. He's still a kid. The Darkling's like 400 years old.
I think I remember the Guff also being quite surprised when it turned out the Darkling was evil. I think I was as well. I think the twist was like, whoa, for both of us, but
That surprises me. Because as
you
you
knew
said,
it, you saw it coming.
well, yeah, but I would think that you're better at predicting than I am. You normally
Like I
are.
say, I normally am, but like I was hoping because they set it up well enough that I thought they might actually go down the route of being like, yeah, he's good. Because I do love the idea of like an opposite teaching or someone teaching the opposite of their art. He's shadow and then teaching someone about light. It's an interesting concept which kind of resonates with me because I like that idea of they're basically two sides of the same coin. So some elements that shadow deals with, light deals with also. But I don't think it's that detailed.
I think if they made the reveal sooner, they could have gone down that route. That then his feelings for Alina change his motives, because at the moment it's just power, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think I agree with you. It would have been a nice avenue to go down. Especially if you get to heavier topics, if we talk like relationships for a sec. Do you go with somebody that you think is like perfect for you? You know, shadow and light, they're from the same kind as such.
Mm-hmm.
Or would you go with somebody that you really have this long-standing relationship with? That would be an interesting thing to really go down if the Darkling had true feelings for Alina, which I hope is something that they do explore, because I think that's super interesting. But if he's just after power, then it's like a no-brainer. Is that what the audience wants? Do they want you to really be conflicted? You see how Twilight sorted it? They just brought in a baby. Said, "Oh yeah, the wolf's in love with the baby." That's all it was.
We all know that bringing a baby into a fractured relationship is never a good idea. It's the worst thing you can do.
I know. Well, it worked out.
You can't fix a relationship with a baby. What would be a 10 out of 10 for you?
Lord of the Rings.
Okay, yeah, I could give that 10 out of 10. Yeah, the extended.
Of course. Of course. I didn't even know there was another one until I watched it. I was like, where are these scenes? Where are they gone?
Crucial scenes.
Gimli. I mean, in the mines, when he's blown away, the ghosts.
Oh yeah.
Gets me every time. And Brago, horsey, obviously. They cut out a few scenes there. I was like, you can't cut out the horses. The bit that gets me is when they open it, finally.
What, the Mines of Moria?
Yeah. It's melon.
Melloc.
No, it's melon.
Oh, is it melon?
Yeah, subtitles. And it just... ever since I watched it with subtitles, it cracks me up. What's the word for friend? Melon.
Melon.
And it just gets me every time. That's the bit that I find funny.
Hey Gandalf, do you have any snacks in the backpack? Hold on, let me check. Oh, we got some apples. Got some bananas. I've got a melon.
Oh, it would be perfect.
Oh shit! Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, meant to do that.
I did want to mention there's also a couple other characters that we haven't spoken about, but that also are somewhat interesting in their own way. For example, Genya, or Taylor, who was Alina's right-hand woman.
Yeah, you're right.
Did like her, love, like very nice sort of character, own inner demons and working with the Darkling. That was revealed. I did not expect that.
No.
I should have seen it.
Yeah.
Really. The fact that letters weren't getting sent, I knew that something was up, but I didn't think it was Genya who was doing it. There was also Zoya. That was another character who was developed a little bit. She was the squaller. She was the Grisha who didn't like Alina. She was the one who tried to sleep with Mal in the first episode.
You thought she was interesting?
Well, sort of, yes, because she didn't like Alina, and then she kind of had a bit of a redemption at the end.
She had the best character arc. Yeah, I would actually say her journey, albeit they didn't show much of it, was the best.
Doesn't like Alina, but then realizes that Alina's the good guy. So,
and again, which is fair, because if you think again, like generalizing here, when somebody new comes into your territory, there is jealousy.
It's great because it painted her off as a bitch, and then like by the end, I was like, yeah, Zoya.
Yeah, you're right, completely. But I was surprised how forward she was with Mal. If you took that bit out, her character seemed like pretty stable. But the fact that she hit on Mal just seemed super random.
I think it was a power play similar to the Darkling. Yeah, she can just bring in any soldier and be like, hey, you want some of this? You want some of these?
It just seemed unnecessary, I guess. It just seemed like it was written in just to create that additional conflict between her and Alina.
I thought it was written to show that Mal was faithful to Alina. He didn't really have eyes for anyone else. Because he could have.
I like that, but Zoya did tell Alina.
Did she?
In the fight.
In which fight?
When they were training.
Oh, when they were training, really?
I'm sure.
I missed that. I was too busy focused on, I don't know, them fighting, I guess. And the fact that she blew her away. Literally.
Yeah, because she tried to provoke that jealousy. So it felt, but I agree with you. Initially, I thought it was to show that Mal wasn't actually interested. Although, again, if we go back to the fact they didn't really address, is he afraid of Grishas or not? Because then it immediately isn't the loyalty to Alina. It's the fact he's afraid of Grishas.
I suppose, but then he did sneak into a tent. If he was afraid of a Grisha, then why would he, risk being caught by a Grisha?
Yeah.
So there's a couple of characters as well. There's Nina and Matthias in the TV series as well. That was introduced kind of later on in the season, and they had a romance. Nina.
Yes. I loved them. It was great. I loved it. And I loved how they tied it in at the end.
The fact that they're on the same ship.
Yeah.
So they're coming back. They're going to be
finally
major.
Connected it for me, because there was that connection at the beginning of how she was introduced, which was because of the three crows.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was the bit at the end where all the characters are finally tied together, which is perfect. Because I did wonder why we were following them for a while.
Yeah, it was a strange reprieve, I suppose, from the main plots.
Yeah.
A little bit annoying at some points, but also not that annoying because it was sweet. And
there was only one thing I didn't like, and that was when Matthias laughed in such a way that I think it was meant to be that he was genuinely laughing, but it sounded so sarky. I was like, this isn't pleasant. But I think it was a bonding moment.
Oh, are you talking about in the hut when they start laughing with each other? Yes.
Yeah. It was just uncomfortable.
Yeah, that didn't feel right.
No.
It felt a bit sudden. Really.
Yeah. He's like, ha, 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 and he just carries on. And that's it. It's like, okay,
And she
cool.
goes, ha 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 ha,
Yeah,
and
it
you
was
just
just
start
a bit.
laughing.
It's
Bit
like, okay.
awkward. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've never been in a situation with like that where I've started laughing and someone
Especially
starts
after an
laughing with me.
insult. Because wasn't it that he said something like, oh, like you could beat me?
Yeah.
And he's like, he's laughing at that. And then she's laughing too. I'm like, but he's laughing at you.
Oh, honey, he's laughing at you. All right, it's not bonding.
No.
He doesn't think much of you. That's the point.
Spoiler though.
Spoiler warning.
I didn't like the bit where he then thinks she tricked him when he's then arrested.
Yeah.
I feel like they had been through so much that for him to shut her off entirely without being willing to hear her out just
I
seems
don't know.
unnecessary.
I felt it was brilliant, and that was quite clever in a sense, you know.
Really?
Yeah, because he was going to die, and she found a way to save him, but
Yeah.
to save him would basically cause him to think that she'd betrayed him, and I thought it was kind of heartbreaking because I was thinking like, oh, this is so. She's saved his life, and he won't be able to accept that because. Yeah, because they started off where she was being shipped off and going to be like catcher stuff. They escape, and they only escape because they've got like unsteady kind of friendship, right? And in essence, like, does she save his life at any point? Not really. Like, she falls into a crack at one point, and he pulls her out in the ice.
Yeah, but she keeps him warm.
She keeps him warm, but like
That's
that
a big lifesaver, right? During the cold.
I suppose, but I could see it. I could see why he would think it was all just a play. It was all ploy. Just get them to civilization so she can have her revenge,
He just seemed a bit overly salty,
He was betrayed. He was going to be taken to be killed. Put on trial.
Yeah, but surely if you're sat in a cage doing nothing anyway, you'd want to hear her out. No?
He'd already fallen for her and he'd been tricked. How could he trust anything that she I mean, like, at that point, I'd feel like so upset I wouldn't want to see them for a good while. We glossed over Kaz and Inej as characters. I just realized.
I really liked how that grew, that relationship and that story, how we as the viewer were given bits at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Love that.
Is it platonic?
No.
Okay.
Why do you think it is?
No, I didn't think it was. I felt like that was something there, but the fact that they couldn't admit it made more sense compared to Mal and Alina, because Kaz is like didn't smile once.
No.
Always, just.
I didn't think I'd like him at the start.
I thought he was too young when I first saw him.
Yeah, he didn't seem like somebody that would be in charge of a massive project. Would you call it? I forget what it's called. What's kidnapping someone? What is that?
Like a heist?
A heist, yeah.
A job?
Yeah, you wouldn't think he would be the one in charge. Jesper seemed more suited. Initially, with the way how they're first introduced. Jesper seemed more in control of situations. Kaz was just staring at people in a nasty way.
Yeah, he didn't really portray like any kind of grandmaster vibes, any leader vibes until later on, where he's just constantly telling them what to do, which I guess is a leader.
Yeah.
Which I did like. Oh, yeah. Little bit here. The fact that he walks with a limp is because I believe I read this. Miss Bardugo herself suffers from, I think it's osteonecrosis, and sometimes needs to use a cane. This was a source of inspiration for one of the story's protagonists, Kaz, who uses a cane.
I did like that actually, because it's like I didn't notice that was an issue for him until the end when he was slower than everyone.
I didn't notice it until he was in disguise in the little palace. And then he was actually limping and trying to like walk around. Yeah.
And run without his cane. From the fire, Grisha.
Yes. Yeah. So that was nice. It was like a nice kind of like weakness that he disguised and hidden in a way
Yeah.
behind his
Yeah.
demeanor, which is quite empowering in a way, because he's
Yeah.
still the leader. No one thinks less of him for it.
Exactly.
In
Yeah.
fact, they probably think he's more dangerous because of it.
I do wish they went into Inej's background a bit more, because
Yeah.
I felt a bit confused about what she was escaping from and why it was so bad. Yeah, you can kind of put your own narrative in, you can make assumptions, but it would have been nice to, because she was so desperate to get away. Like, that was so important above everything else for her.
Mm-hmm.
And also that she didn't want to kill.
Yes.
Like, she had these kind of things that she was living by, but we never really found out why it's so important to her.
Yeah. Oh, I did like the religious sort of aspect of it.
Yes.
She was religious. That's pretty cool. I like that idea, because it's not really done a lot in stuff. Someone who has like faith, and it plays a big part of their character. She believed, like Alina was the sun summoner, and she had this like sort of religious faith about it.
Yeah.
And then that was an interesting kind of conflict with her and Kaz, and the fact that Kaz was like, it's all trickery, it's all fake.
Yeah. And yet they still were drawn to each other.
They still love each other.
They did. Yeah.
The whole killing thing, that was interesting, especially when she was so like upset about the fact she killed someone to save Kaz.
Yeah.
And then later on, she kills someone. I was thinking, has this like basically open floodgates for her? Because that was interesting. I would have thought, would that not have the same sort of weight? She's taken one life and felt pretty bad about it, and now she's just taken another one.
But isn't that what they say? The first human life you take is always the most difficult. So it's kind of, once you've, especially if you take from like a faithful position, then you think, if you've done it once, well,
and I guess
you already broke the rule.
She had a rationale behind it as well, because the woman was like, if I remove this, then you're going to die instantly. She was like, well, if I live, I'm going to totally kill you. And she's like, well,
yeah.
I thought that made me laugh.
Back then.
That made me laugh because that was so stupid. If I remove this, you're going to be dead in 30 seconds. If I live, I'm going to kill you. I just said, if I remove this, you're going to die.
Yeah.
Why would you threaten me when you're about to die?
Yeah.
Oh, God. That was stupid of her. And then she died. I guess, so there's a bit of rationale behind that. She didn't really want to kill him, but then they gave her no choice.
Self-preservation. Yeah, I suppose that, again, that is different. Self-defense. Like the other one, she kind of killed. Not in self-defense.
That was to save Kaz.
It was, but I think there is that
Kaz Bay.
that even that difference, like legally, again, if we apply in the real world, self-defense is viewed differently as saving somebody else. I.e., you can't shoot someone in the back. So I suppose that brings us to the ending that you said you weren't so happy with.
I suppose so. Yeah. The reason why I'm not a big fan of the ending is because it was a lot of build-up, and I really wanted them to take down the fold, and the fact they didn't, and they said, you're not gonna be able to do it yet, just kind of like was like, because then it was just like, it was building up and building up and building up, and it felt a little bit anticlimactic that they get out of the fold. I mean, they killed a Darkling, that was quite nice, but even if it was quite sudden, but yeah, you give me the eye. I know. Spoiler warning: he's not dead. But like, the point being that like they thought he was, and you would think he was.
Yeah, I suppose.
And so they come out and they don't destroy the fold, and then you've got like 5 minutes of them going, "We're not going to be able to destroy the fold. Let's do something else." And it's that sort of like, okay, let's do something else. Let's find something else to do before we can do that. That was what annoyed me.
See, I understand that, but if we just talk about it in this, like, if we pretend it's all real,
okay,
the Darkling never would have trained Alina up to be able to take down the fold.
No, but it was giving off the sense that she was like much more powerful than him.
Which I get, but emotional abuse, she thinks she can't. The whole time he's been telling her she can't do it without him.
True.
And it almost gives that opportunity for the second season to allow her to find the strength with true friends,
Mhm.
to
And within
find her
herself.
own strength. Yeah, right? Not because of a guy.
Mhm.
And I think that's what I liked about it. I didn't mind that the fold wasn't taken down,
Mm. Well,
especially with the
each
spoiler
their
at
own.
the end when they're all walking out. That
Oh,
that made it interesting because it's like a game changer. You've set up these rules, what it's been like for such a long period of time, and at the end of the season there is that big change that these rules don't apply anymore.
mm. And also the fact that he said follow, and the fold starts to follow him.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm excited.
So
I didn't mind that the fold didn't come down, but I can understand why you'd be disappointed if that's like the whole point of the first season then doesn't happen.
yeah, it felt
Makes
like that was what they were building up to.
Yeah.
And instead it was more just like take down a darkling, but they didn't do that either. So but yeah, I'm
They
excited
failed. They failed. They're only kids, right?
Yeah, God, they had one job. I mean, they're getting there. As a whole, Shadow and Bone,
I loved it.
I really did enjoy it. I was like, me and the Guff got to a point, and then we had to stop watching. And for the whole week, I was like, I really want to watch the next bit. I want to see where this is going.
I think I watched it in like 2 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
It did a very good job of not having any filler, which kind of makes sense because it was a short series.
Yeah.
Every episode contributed to the plot in some manner.
Yeah.
And it's funny just how many themes it just touches upon.
Yeah. Without being too obvious, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not too important. Like the thing that we said at the start about Alina being a different ethnicity, it didn't matter by the time she was Sun Summoner.
And yet there was still allusions to it as being a thing, which made it, part of the world. It was like part of like the stuff. So you had racism, you had religious, like what would you call, not fanaticism, like religious belief. You had that. You had politics, sexuality. Yeah.
I know we're on 2 totally different pages there.
Oh, I enjoyed the politics of it all. I loved it when Jesper boned that guy in the stables. So it was very clever, and I really enjoyed it for that fact. There's a lot of facets that you can look at it for.
And it wasn't unnecessarily gruesome. I think, again, it's very easy with fantasy to go down Game of Thrones route and just be a bit too much. But it also wasn't censored so much that it wasn't enjoyable as an adult to watch it. It didn't feel like we were watching a kid's show.
Yeah, that's funny, isn't it? Even though it was a young adult, based on a young adult novel, it didn't really feel like a young adult series. I mean,
no,
there was aspects. I mean, girl finding a place, doesn't belong, girl in love with a boy, girl in love with a guy who has power over her, power dynamics. Oh, so many things. And you wouldn't realize how many characters there are. I don't want to say lovable, but like,
likeable.
Characters that, likable. So many characters that stick in your mind and go like, oh, I really like that person. Very well developed characters.
And I think you're right. This is one of the only series I've watched where you can actually like every single character because they all have a reason.
They have a reason for what they're doing.
Yeah.
They all have their own arcs and their own demons and their own plots.
Yeah.
If they wanted to do a spin-off on Genya, I'd watch it.
Yeah.
If they wanted to do a spin-off of what were their names? Michael and Dimitri or something. What are their names? The 2 soldiers that Mal's with that die. Oh, that's sad.
Oh, that got me. That I wasn't expecting because it's a young adult. This is what I'm saying, right? It was heavy because it dealt with war.
Yeah.
Actual war and sabotage and, as you say, politics. Like it was great. It touched on everything. Really. I really, really, really enjoyed it. And I'm rooting for Mal and Alina.
How about we give a rating? What's the Alex rating out of 10?
Yeah, I think out of 10. I think I would give it an 8. 7.5 to an 8. Yeah.
Why have you knocked it down 2 notches?
Okay, 1, because I felt super uncomfortable with the Darkling and Alina. it just weirded me out, and I couldn't tell why. I don't know if it was the script, and I think that it was meant to be a bit uncomfortable, but so many people were on board with it, but I just wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And then what we said about the character development, let's say with Mal,
Mm-hmm.
that really bothered me, and with Inej, those sorts of things, like it still felt not great. It wasn't the complete thing. And
Okay.
you?
I would give it a 9.5, probably.
Oh,
Probably
okay.
high rating. Like I say, I think they should have ran with the fact that Darkling was a good guy, but source material down an hour, so you can't make a change that big. But nonetheless, I thought that would have taken things in a much more interesting direction, but still very enjoyable. Actually, let's go 9.
I
Actually,
was gonna say, yeah, 9.5 is pretty high.
my other 0.5 is probably because there's a few scenes where I'm just like,
Yeah.
But it's something that I recommend to a lot of people. So a 9 means recommend to a lot of people. 10 out of 10 is recommend to everyone.
Okay,
8
10 out
out
of
of
10 for
10.
me is like I could watch it every day.
Thank you for listening. This has been an Alex and Ted production of Ted and Alex Productions.
Yeah.
Hope you enjoyed listening to our review, and tune in next week when I'll not be wearing trousers. So
Can't say I'll
fun
join
to
in
be
with
had
that.
then.
Yeah.
Oh man, okay. I thought it'd be like a dual thing. We don't have to show them off. Just sit like this.
Okay.
I mean, you can't tell right now, but I'm wearing a dress.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh my god,
Anyway.
we're matching. I didn't even realize.
I didn't realize you're wearing a dress right now.
Basically.
Oh. Well, yes. Anywho, yes. Tune in next time. Thank you. Good night. Spoiler warning.